Revolution is a complete shift in ways of thinking and methods of working on breaking patterns and faulty beliefs. First, we need to do the inner work and have revelation about our belief system. This helps us determine which beliefs have been handed down generationally that no longer fit our ways of thinking. New trends start and healing happens for us, our families, and society at large. Call in with your revelations and revolutions to change faulty thinking. Inner Revelations and Revolutions with Deb Goldberg, Carolyn Colling, and Lynetta Willis.
Angel Heart Radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice. Welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. You are our focus. We want you to know that you matter in the world and that you're important to the world. We're here to remind you of just how valuable and needed you are right now. Help us to help others. If you like what you hear, tell your friends, post, tweet, pin, let everyone know how amazing Angel Heart Radio is. So again, welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is sponsored by AngelLight777.com.
Welcome, everyone, to Angel Heart Radio. I'm your host, Deb Goldberg, and it brings me great pleasure to be here with you today, and it's an honor to serve you in the highest way that I can by bringing you messages of divine love and blessings for your life. You are dearly loved, cherished, and blessed. We have a great show for you tonight. I want to give you the call-in phone number. It's 347-202-0232. Let me tell you about the other two podcast hosts. The founder of Angel Heart Radio is Anaya Joy Halili, and her show airs on every other Friday, USA time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, and Saturdays, 10 o'clock a.m. Queensland time. You can also reach Anaya at AngelLight777.com. The other podcast host is Annette McCoy, and her show airs on Tuesdays, 8 o'clock p.m. USA time Eastern, and Wednesdays, 10 o'clock a.m. Queensland time. If you are interested in knowing more about me or working with me or my books, you can find me at DebbieAnnGoldberg.com. You can find my books under Amazon, and it is under the book series name A Divinely Ordered Life. So let me tell you about my regular guest hosts and co-hosts that I'm always love to bring on the show. They're just awesome. Carolyn Colling is my guest host tonight, and she's an amazing mindset coach and personal development strategist, and she mentors women in their lives and business, helping them to understand their own personal paradigms. And welcome, Carolyn.
Why, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. Carolyn's done some amazing things with readings, and she's very intuitive, and she's just a really special person, very open and loving, supportive coach. And we also have Dr. Lynetta Willis, and she is our co-host tonight. She's a psychologist and author of the children's book, My Forgotten Self, and creator of the Elemental Living, Parenting, and Personal Leadership program. And Lynetta is an awesome, dynamic person that is, she just always has some great conversation too. And tonight she's picked our topic, so we're all interested to hear about it and talk about it. Welcome, Lynetta.
Hello. Good to be back.
I know. We haven't, the three of us, been on for a while.
I know. It's great.
Yeah. Yes. And Carolyn was just telling me that she probably can't do any more shows, which is a bummer. Because she's been a staple with me for quite a while, and with Lynyetta. And so we if this is going to be our last show, it's got to be a awesome celebration for her.
Woo!
And as her business is growing and she's doing more things that she's passionate about. So,
yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you so much. And thanks
Oh.
for the opportunity too, Deb. It's always been such a pleasure. And I always get on these shows and think to myself, are we going to have enough to talk about in an hour? And then, of course, the hour passes and we're still speaking. So it's
Exactly.
it's always been amazing. Thank you.
Well, you are very welcome, because you definitely, both of you, fill me with so much more light and understanding, and it always turns into awesome conversations. And I think our listeners really benefit from, having maybe 3 point of views that are coming from a little bit different places, and so it becomes a very comprehensive conversation, and it's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Lynyetta, you talked about revolutions, and I added revelations to that, which you also use. So, why don't you tell us why you picked this topic and how you're using it and how we are to understand it?
Absolutely. So, as you said at the beginning of the show, the definition I like to use for revolution is complete shift in the ways of thinking and methods of working, right? And when we come into this world, we're programmed with different patterns based on how we're raised, where we're raised, and sometimes those patterns, they're reflections of what we call intergenerational cycles. So you have different patterns that are passed down from generation to generation. And some of those patterns are very healthy and helpful, and then other patterns not so much. I've talked on previous shows about the 4 horsemen mindset: pain, blame, shame, and avoidance. Those are definitely 4 fellows that love to gallop from generation to generation. And we carry these mindsets throughout our life, and we don't even realize it a lot of times. So a lot of the work that I do, I am a psychologist. I'm also a family empowerment coach, and I do a lot of work with self-aware families that really want to shift or at least up-level the experiences that they've had when they were children. Some people had fine experiences and they just want to up-level. Other people want to shift it. And what I've realized is it's not enough just to read books and, set great intentions. Sometimes we really do need to have an inner revolution in order to experience what I call an intergenerational evolution, right? In order to grow as a family, we really need to grow internally. We need to shift our ways of thinking and our methods of working. So a lot of times when I work with families or individuals who are interested in really just up-leveling how they show up in the world, in their life and relationships, we talk about having an inner revolution. What are the mindsets that you need to shift? What are tools that you're using that maybe aren't so skillful anymore? What needs to be healed, right? What are things that you need to be aware of that you're not so aware of? These are all components that fit into another model that I've developed that we really look at and we work on to really move towards this inner revolution so that you can show up in your life and your most important relationships in ways that make you feel good and bring you joy and more love into yourself and to those around you. So that's why I like talking about, inner revolutions. And to the revelation part, the revelations are key to revolution, right? You can't have a revolution unless there is a revelation that a revolution is needed. So a lot of families that I work with, they're very self-aware around the idea that, something's got to shift. And it's not that everything's crazy all the time and chaotic. Sometimes it's just, we need to shift a little bit. I had one client who I was asking her, like, okay, why did you decide to, work with me? And she said, I realized we have mindset coaches, sports coaches, business coaches, life coaches, like all these coaches. But if you asked us what was the most important thing, it would be our family. And we don't have a family coach, So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, and I loved that answer, of course. But, I think when we work with people, we work with ourselves to have these inner revolutions, especially so that we can up-level and empower our relationships, we're doing such a great service not just to ourselves, but to those that we love, and especially to the next generation, the children, because we're teaching them a new way so that maybe their revolutions don't have to be as traumatic as some of ours may have to be.
And I completely and totally agree with that. And in the work that I do, as a rapid transformational practitioner, so using hypnosis, going back to deep-rooted issues that typically stem from childhood that end up affecting us, and most people that are coming to me are now 40 and 50 years old. And they've finally said, hey, I've lived my life patterning this certain way. I've tried everything to break it. I don't know what's wrong. And then when we go into these sessions, only to find out, what, this has been a pattern their whole life. And it's really interesting to me because if something is a pattern, we're often not aware of it until it's pointed out. And even if it is pointed out, it can still happen. So even if you're aware of it, and I've talked about this in my own life. So, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She, was very reliant on my father and raised the children and really didn't have that sense of independence. And I remember thinking to myself, I will never be that. I don't ever want to be, because then my father was killed by a drunk driver, and then her world fell apart. And I thought to myself, I never want to be that dependent on somebody. And yet I was completely and totally dependent on somebody. But in my mind, I thought, oh, look at me. Like, yes, I can run a bank account, and yes, I can, figure out how to run the household, yet I still had, still was completely and totally dependent on my husband. And so, so even though I said to myself, I don't want to be that, I don't want to be in a situation where if something happened to my husband, I'd be destitute, I still kind of allowed myself to fall into the mold and couldn't really see that I was there. So to me, that's really interesting, because I think we tend to do these things so subconsciously. And even when we think we're aware of it, we still pattern in a way that we are completely unconscious. It's crazy.
No, it's so true, and I think things like hypnosis, like I use hypnosis too in my work, and they're really helpful in helping us to, as you know, Carolyn, like bring forward those things that keep us stuck in those patterns and help us to rewire our brains so that we can kick ourselves out of those habitual patterns. Because you're right. I mean, there are people who just, they know, I always use the nurses who work on the cancer ward example who go out for smoke breaks, and they're like, I know that this is going to kill me. I see how it happens every single day, but it's a habit. Right. My body's used to this, and so it's one of those things where, it's not always enough just to have the awareness that, this probably isn't working well. And sometimes needing to dig a little bit deeper and gain some insight into what exactly is this founded on? How deep does this go? Is necessary. Some people can hit it pretty easily and understand it and know it, but others, you're right, like they're like, I've been doing this for how many years?
Exactly. And the thing is that, and you can say, well, I'm a nurse, I know that I shouldn't smoke, I know that the cause and effect, but really, what is the root? So there's usually always a root to every symptom or something that we do that we don't like. So whether we, many of us, I know I was one of them at one point too, smoked. I know that I enjoyed smoking. Why? Because it calmed me down. It made me feel better when, it just taking that great big breath of crap into my lungs brought me down like 4 notches. And I just felt like, oh my God, the world is all right again. But why was I smoking? Why? And even though I know it's not right, and even though my parents said don't do it, and they did it, and please don't, and even though I saw movies where, people had, the hole in the throat and all the rest of it, I still did it. But why? So that's the key, is that we need to figure out the why to the reason.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that we're all trying to fill things inside of us that we think is missing. This all comes down to beliefs, and what I notice is it's I'm not enough, I don't have enough, I'm not good enough, and so we have all of these faulty beliefs that we hang on to, and
Mhm.
there it's an undercurrent that's always running, because the ego likes to grab onto those and keep it's in our subconscious. It just keeps running them like a rerun, and so we're always trying to fill in something that we think is missing. Like, I don't have peace, so I need to smoke. I need something that's going to give me peace because I don't have it, or I don't have enough money. I don't have enough love. I don't like the way my body looks. We have all of these things that come down to some like really minute things that everything feeds off of them. And one of them is I'm not enough, abandonment, rejection, um, the fear of being alone, and which of course I talk a lot about the separation from God. That belief starts all of the other beliefs, because if everybody understood their identity, then they wouldn't have to be filling themselves or doing all kinds of things to gain peace that is already there. The
Mm.
other thing is, like, I didn't even know that I needed some revelations, until I got woke up. So lots of us think like, oh, okay, things are all right, and or I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, or whatever, and not really understand that we have lots of things to open inside of us, like Pandora's box, that there's so much revelation when you go inside. And until I was awoke, so like if people have some kind of awareness that there's something going on inside, and rather than being in denial of it, which what I was, that they can start doing these things with you, right? As a coach, they can start working with you. But I didn't
Mhm.
know it until I one day started asking, what am I doing that's causing pain in my relationships? And that was
Mhm.
a trigger for me to um, start questioning, and it opened up the door for me to learn a whole lot of things um, that I didn't realize was part of me, like all of these faulty beliefs that you're talking about, um, breaking patterns that have been passed down generationally. And I'll just add to that there's so much more to this. It's passed down generationally, but I talk about soul print energy, which has been around since the beginning of time. It's like an energetic web of every fear that we any of us could ever have, and it just keeps circulating in us over and over and over and over again, like a tape recorder. And each one of us have all the same soul print energy with all the same beliefs, the faulty beliefs, which of course got passed down too through generations, but patterns got passed down through generations of how you deal with things, or how you look at things, or whatever. So, but those belief systems are common to every single person. So there's not a person out there that has not been affected by this. You want to call it generationally transmitted or soul print energy of patterns of beliefs and thinkings that are all faulty.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I the first thing I always tell people, because when they come, especially when they come because of their children, like, I'm screwing up my kids. Like,
Mhm.
help me not
Yeah.
screw up
Yeah.
my kids, right?
Mhm.
And it's the first shift I try to help people see is the fact that you are noticing this is not
Mhm.
a sign of your brokenness, it's a sign of your bravery, right? We
Mhm.
all have things. We all have things. But the minute you say, oh, crap, what am I doing?
Mhm.
And then you decide to do something different, that is a sign of bravery, not brokenness. You are brave, not broken, right? When you decide to move on that path. So having that mind, because a lot of times we think about, I have all these thoughts and I'm always blocking myself and I can't move forward and I'm hurting my relationships and I'm screwing up my kids and all this stuff. And I'm like cheering. I'm like, the fact that you have that awareness is huge. Like you were saying, Deb, we spend so much of our life just asleep, not even realizing it.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people, and think about this, and I know I do this. So, say my parents taught me in celebration, like for example, it's tradition to whatever that looks like for you. So, it's tradition to always, on Christmas morning, I opened my stocking first, and everybody had to sit and, however that looked, okay? So that was the first thing we did. But somebody else, they did it the night before. Somebody else, they don't celebrate. Whatever that looks like. And my point being is that, and this is the reason I say this, is because I think it's completely and totally the right way is the way that I know. So, and I think, and of course I am a little bit more open-minded than that. And I think, okay, yeah, sure, go for it. Open your stocking after dinner. Whoa, like that's a big one. But, but the thing is my point to this is just that because this is the way that I've always done it, somebody else could approach me and I might not be open to understanding that there is no right or wrong way. There is, it's just a tradition. It's something that's passed to you. And whether that's a tradition, whether that's a mindset, whether that's a belief. Okay, so when we're narrowing down our belief systems, and we often defend them, even if they're not right. So even if they, they may not be politically correct, or maybe they're not even truthful. We will still defend those things because that's what we know is truth and we know is right. So to recognize and say, you know what, like I have all these belief systems. I don't know. I feel like maybe this isn't right. And so when you actually are questioning it, like you said, I think it's fantastic because most of us don't. Right? Or if we do, we just say, yeah, but that's what I was taught. So if that's what I was taught, that's what I'm teaching you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right. That's
totally
what I was taught, and I turned out fine.
Yeah. And how many times have we even said that? Yeah, I did it this way, and I turned out fine. But do you want fine, or do you want fantastic?
I know. That's often the line we hear with the great spanking debate. I was spanked and I turned out fine, and I always joke. I was like, but you could have been like a Nobel Prize winner or something. You don't know. You have no idea what you could have been.
And you might be fine, but the fact is that the fact that you fell onto your head, you might have maybe caused some damage there. I mean, maybe. I'm being silly, but I totally agree. The fact of the matter is that recognition is the first sign of awakening. And I just think, you know what? Yes, you might have been fine, but let's do better. And I want better for my children. We all want better, and we all know that there is room for improvement. So so I guess what I'm asking you now is, where do you go to understand what better would be, and how do you recognize that within yourself? What do you think about that?
Great question.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it's multiple things. Like, I think relationships are our most powerful tool that we have in this life. In order, they're the perfect barometer for how we're showing up in the world. And that's that awareness piece, that external awareness. How are people responding to me? Do I notice patterns? Are my relationships off? Like, what's going on? Because relationships are often a mirror to us. That's why I love working with relationships, whether it's parent-child, couple, parent, whomever, because you can get so much information out of them. So realizing, am I triggered when I'm in relationship with this particular person, or what are my triggers? what does my energy level tend to do, you know, when I'm engaging this person or when this situation tends to happen, you know, and just starting to notice when we feel good and when we don't feel so good. Our emotions are great barometers, and relationships are perfect triggers for them, you know. So realizing, how am I feeling? You know, I recently had this situation where it hit me that, like, I am tired. Like, I just had this awareness of, I am so tired. I don't know what's going on. Come to find out, I have been I won't say suffering, but I was told that I have chronic insomnia. I had it for over a year, and I was like, that's really sad, because I'm a psychologist and I totally should have nailed that. But it wasn't until, you know, I started to really pay attention to my body. I started to pay attention to what I was feeling in my body and realizing something's not right. Now, I'd gotten so used to the fatigue, it took me a minute, but I did. I also started noticing how I was showing up in my relationships with my kids. Like, there was sort of this deadness to me. You know, I just didn't have the energy to do with them what I wanted to do. So realizing, like, getting that ping of, you know, my relationships with my kids isn't really what I want to be. My husband and I, there's something off there. You know, we're off kilter. What's going on? Those were all triggers for me to really look inside and see, you know what, I'm not really that great. I'm not really that happy right now. What is going on? And so I did some more searching, went to my doctor. We had some discussions and realized, like, oh, I'm tired. And so got on some natural herbs, and now it's way better. But, you know, just realizing we have all that we need to really sort of get insight into the direction we need to move, because our emotions, our feelings, and our relationships, even our body sensations, when we just start paying attention, give us a lot of clues when something needs to change.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and how long do we go forward? Like, I mean, I get this myself, is that, you know, how long do we go forward saying, I just don't feel good, or I don't feel happy, or I don't, you know, I'll be happy when, or I'll do this when, or whatever. You know, how long do we go forward in that without saying, just a second, let's stop the train? You know, our lives are so busy. And of course, you know, mankind has now created an app for this and this for that. You know, there's an app for everything, to create everying to be faster and more efficient, and to the point where we are inundated in fast pace, fast life. Everything's convenient. And you get on that train and you're going so fast, and then it's that stopping and listening. You know, I found it really interesting. I have a friend that is just having a lot of problems in a lot of relationships that she's involved in. And, you know, she keeps saying, oh, and this person with that, and this person with this, and this. And I thought, it's interesting to me, because the one common thing that all of you have in common is you. So do you see what I'm saying? There's lots of arms. There's, you know, it's all stretched out. It's one big mind map. You know, it's one, you know, there's just relationship after relationship. And I'm thinking, okay, but the common denominator, the person that it's starting with, is you. And so what is it you need to see in all of this? Because there's a lot of people holding up mirrors for you. But if you're not willing to look, and you're just willing to point fingers and keep on that same fast train that just goes around and around, your life, you know, I'm going to talk to you today, and I'm going to talk to you 5 years from now, and it'll be the same.
Yeah.
So
you
it's
know,
up to
so
you.
great. It is. And I always say, you know, we will relive what we don't reclaim. You know, and it's that same idea. Like, if you don't start to notice and say, yeah, these things, this matters, this happened, this, you know, and it's not about internalizing it all and wallowing in it and sitting with it, you know, it's just about acknowledging that, yeah, you know what, the past 8 relationships have pretty much looked exactly the same. Different faces, same exact relationship, you know.
Well,
maybe I need to
what's really funny is
grab onto something.
Right in front of me, I have this calendar of quotes. And so right in front of me, there's a quote that says, "Some of the finest friendships are between persons of a different disposition. The mind is often attracted by perfections it lacks in itself."
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning, you know what? Oh, do you see what I'm saying? So the thing is that that's why those people are presenting to you, because you need to look at it.
Exactly.
Right.
Because your mind is lacking.
Life will keep showing it to you.
Yes.
Picking up a different mirror does not remove that piece of spinach from your teeth. The piece of spinach is still in your teeth. And looking at it through a different mirror is not going to make it go away.
Oh, my God. That's so funny. Oh, you are so funny. And it's so true. But, when you're asleep in this trance of busyness and the trance of the illusion, you don't realize that something's wrong. And learning how to be honest with yourself, and lots of people, and I was a therapist. I just stayed away from my feelings. I just pushed them down because I didn't want to deal with it, and didn't even know that I needed to. So I think that for lots of people, they're still very stuck in what this world is, and afraid to ask those questions inside, like, am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Do I have peace? Do I feel passionate about what I'm doing? Do I feel good about my parenting and my relationships? And when we ask those questions, sometimes people just dwell within their unhappiness, and they just think about it over and over and over again, which is a whole cycle that you get stuck in of playing that tape over and over again, but you're not really doing anything about it except making yourself more upset, rather than being able to say, hey, I'm willing to look at this. I'm willing to look at this because I want better for myself or for my family. And what's so interesting is that I know as moms, we would do things for our kids that we wouldn't do for ourselves, right? We would say, we would say, oh gosh, if it's for them, if it's going to make them better, then I'm going to do this. We don't think about how important it is for you to do the work yourself, because as you clear out all of your patterns and get revelation, and I think this is a place to start talking about revolution, is that I don't want to pass these patterns down. I don't really care for what I learned from my family. And maybe you don't speak them, but they're still stuck in there. Or, they're still coming out in ways that you have no idea, because we're just blind to ourselves and everything that is going on from soul print energy. And I think, a lot of the culprit is judgment, that we judge ourselves, we judge other people, and we're judging through a very critical eye and don't really understand the truth of life, if that makes sense. So when you start learning about things, you do need to have a revolution within yourself to not carry things forward, right?
Yeah. Once you have the revelation, now it's time for the work to begin. Now it's time for the revolution. And, I think it goes back to what we talked about a few shows back, when we're talking about the concept of stable misery. Sometimes you get so used to being in a certain state, a certain way, that you don't even realize that you're miserable anymore. It's like my insomnia is a really good example of that, where I got to the point where I got used to being tired.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I really reflected and thought, and this is a good exercise, I think, for anyone, I thought, like, when did I feel, let me think of a time in my life where I felt my most vibrant and my most alive and my most happy. I had my most energy, and I had different images that came to mind. And then I asked, what's different now? Why am I not there now?
Mhm.
And I think anyone could ask, like, when's the time where I felt most fulfilled? When's the time I felt the most passionate? When's the time where I felt most energized? When's the time I felt most connected? Right? And
Mhm.
let me compare that to what I feel now. Not necessarily the situation, but just the feeling,
Mhm.
and then what's in that gap? What is in that gap that keeps me from where I was? Right? And
Mhm.
that's how we could start start digging deeper. And it might be hiring a coach or a therapist or a spiritual director or somebody to help us wade through that. But
Mhm.
being able to ask that question can really give us insight into whether or not we are living in a stable misery state,
Mhm.
I think
and whether
that's,
it's
I think,
transient or consistent.
yeah, I think it's
Mhm.
perfect. I think that's actually the perfect question because there typically was a time. Now, for some people, it may date back years, you
Mhm.
know,
Decades. Mhm.
decades. For some people, it may be, when they were living their best authentic life just for them,
Mhm.
and their focus was on themselves versus everybody else.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And actually, when you actually said that out loud, I started to think. I thought, well, just a second. When was the last time and I can tell you, it actually struck me. The time I felt the best was when I was focused on me.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
that was right after my divorce. And I was going to the gym and I was eating healthy and I was changing all these things I needed to change to create the life
Mhm.
that I wanted, but I was
Beautiful.
doing it for me and I wasn't
Mhm.
doing it for anybody else. And I realized that just a second, that's when I was my fittest, my healthiest, my mindset was I would even say, of course, doing the work over that 10-year period as well really helped. But, I would
Mhm.
say at least I just began or decided to begin the journey.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so I think that's it. I think that, if we can ask that question, and it doesn't matter who you are, think about that. When was the
Mhm.
last
Mhm.
time? And typically it's because you actually have finally done what you should have done all along, which we just don't, is look after ourselves.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
usually does come back to that.
Yeah.
And then there's like this small gap that just starts to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So the next question would be, okay, if I want to get back to that state, what is that stuff in the gap? What is the stuff that's in the way that I need to shift or transform or clear out or maybe move around to help me cross over and get closer to where I was when I was feeling
Mhm.
great and when I was feeling amazing? Because now, which I think is another aspect of this that's important, now you have a vision, right? And we can look
Mhm.
back to the most healthiest, happiest, whatever it is. Now we have a vision. Now we have something that is tangible. Not only is it a pie, it's not even a pie in the sky vision. It's something we had at one point,
Yeah.
you know. And
Mhm.
so now it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I can get back there. So what do I need to do? What are some small steps I can take to help me start to inch my way back to where
Right.
I want to be? You know.
Right. Mhm.
Mhm.
And so I think those are awesome things to do. And I wanted to offer another point of view because we
Okay.
could
Mhm.
also look at what is this telling me? If I am sitting
Mhm.
in this, if I'm sitting in, well, insomnia or tiredness, what does it want me to know aside from I may not be functioning at my best, or because everything is a repeated pattern from our life that we keep recirculating things, when was another time in my life when I had insomnia and found it very difficult to sleep? Was I a little girl or boy? Was it something in my childhood? Was it something in my 20s? Was it something that I experienced where I really had a lot of trouble sleeping? That whether it's whatever it is, anxiety or anything that is creating that, or can't shut your mind off, and going and saying, where is another time in my life that I went through this? Because everything's is a pattern over and over again. So then you could be looking at, I need that time in my life is speaking to me right now, and that time in my life um, is trying to tell me something that needs to be healed. A pattern needs to be healed, a belief, whatever it is, a child, an inner child. So I think we can use this in so many great ways of looking at, am I functioning at my best right now? And if I'm not, what is the message that is underneath what I'm feeling? What is this tiredness?
Right.
What is this sleepiness about?
I totally agree with that. And so, Lynyetta, what would you say? Is that a pattern? And then, if it is a pattern, what would you say, metaphysically speaking, or maybe you have recognized it before in the past? Have you?
Yeah. No. So for me, it goes back to definitely, you relive what you don't reclaim, right? So for me, what that is a sign of, what that was a sign of for me was that I'm doing too much, right? It's too full. My life is too full. And what was happening is there were parts of me that wanted to speak and wanted to be heard. And the only time they could be heard was when I stopped, which was at night when I was asleep, right? So I would wake up to all this head chatter. And when I finally had this realization, I slowly started. This was the summer of clearing. Like, I literally have one thing on my plate right now that I'm focusing on. I mean, yeah, there's kids and family, and, I have to, feed them and clothe them and spend time with my husband and stuff like that. But in terms of things that I'm focusing on, there's one thing I'm focusing on, and so for me, and I am sleeping wonderfully. That, and I've also brought a fan into my room that I put on my bedside because I was waking up warm too, so that's also helped on a practical level. But, that's really what it was a sign of. It was too full. My plate was too full, and there were aspects of my being that wasn't being heard, that weren't being heard because I was too busy to listen. And when I finally stopped and slowed down and started, I was meditating, but no, it was more on and off. That was the other thing. My time where I would sit down and just be still, that was getting kind of thrown off too, right? So even my self-care things, the things that I do to give myself, my body, my mind, and my spirit time to just all commune together, I was shortchanging that. And there are consequences for that. Those are things that I need, and I was shortchanging all of that. So for me, the insomnia was a symbol of my body and my mind and my spirit shouting in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. Slow down, stop, empty the plate.
Stop. Yeah, and what's really interesting about that too is that that's the thing. We're on the fast train, right? And we are so busy. And then if you start to cut back and you say, I'm sorry, I can't. And I noticed this within myself. I have had a few things that I had to refrain from going to, some things, functions and different things, because I just had too much on my plate. And it really came back at me. People were upset with me. They didn't feel I was trying hard enough. They didn't feel the obligations were being fulfilled. They didn't think, and I really struggled with that. So then guilt came up, and it was like, maybe I should be doing more, and why are they mad at me? And maybe, is that my fault? Is it my fault that I didn't put down proper expectations or boundaries? Sorry. What does that mean? And I struggled with this same thing a couple of times in different circles, and I'm thinking, okay, something's not right here. And I just find it interesting that when we actually do pull back, because we've extended ourselves just crazily, and we show up for absolutely everything. So we look like the wondrous person that just can put on the cape and go to absolutely and do absolutely everything. So when we decide we don't want to do that, or we can't fulfill these obligations, then all of a sudden it's like, well, what's wrong with her? She went to so-and-so's, but she didn't come to mine, and she did this, and she didn't do that for me, and I've found this a few times, and I keep looking at it, going, just a minute, I need to scale back, and I need to say to myself, you know what, it's okay. You can't do everything, and because you have tried to do everything, you're the lady at the circus putting the plates on top of the sticks, and you're twirling. And something's going to fall. And you know what? Let it. So the fact of the matter is, it's time to put all those plates down and focus on one. And what a relief. What a good feeling. And you know what? If people don't like it, well, guess what? You know what? We can't do everything. We can't please everybody all the time. And it's really important to go back to what's really super important to us, to our being. And strictly for us, and I'm not including children and feeding them and doing all those things. Those are mandatory. But I'm talking about all the extras, and then your mind finally can rest and finally can come to that amazing conclusion that, you know what, you don't have to be everything to everybody.
It's so powerful too, because as you're talking, what I'm thinking of is, there's actually power in power for you in what those people are reflecting back to you. Because their frustration and anger, what they're basically saying is, Carolyn, this is what you've taught me. You've taught me that this is what I can expect of you. You've taught me this is how I can treat you. And now you're breaking the
what's wrong with you?
Breaking the contract here. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But it gives us insight when that happens that, oh, I need to be careful the next time I write a contract, that it's really what I want what I really want people to think about me or believe about me, and being clear. I tell my children all the time when they're acting and doing certain things, like say I allow them to stay an extra 5 minutes up or something, and then they start melting down when I say it's bedtime, and I always say to them, you're teaching me something right now. Make sure it's the lesson you want me to learn. Because what they're teaching me is, Mommy, I can't handle an extra 5 minutes. You really need to hold those boundaries, because you give me the extra 5 minutes, I'm going to nut up, right? Yeah. So I say to them, you're teaching me something right now. Make sure it's a lesson you really want me to learn, because I'm a quick learner. I'm a very quick learner. And they're like, no, I'm fine. I can go to bed. I'm okay. Because they're so used to that. But, I mean, that's in all relationships. Like, right? We teach people these things. And then when they reflect back to us, hey, this is what you taught me, we can get frustrated, of course. And, I think when I'm in my higher mind, I can look at them and say, you know what? Thank you. You've just reflected back to me a lesson that I've taught you about me. And that, honestly, is not true. It's never been true. It's not true. I'm not Superwoman, I don't have a magic cape that can make me fly over buildings, and thank you for letting me know that that's what I've taught you. I'm going to rewrite that script now.
It's hard when you're not your higher mind.
Yes,
when I'm in my
it is.
I'm like, there's other words I used.
Yeah. Right. But you know what's so interesting is that everybody is reflecting back to you as different inner members of yourself. So what people are saying to you are things that you already think that about yourself. Sort of like, oh, if I don't show up, somebody's going to get mad at me. And so then here you go. Now you're having somebody speak your own inner thoughts to you that you don't realize you have all these different members inside. you have a whole board room of members that are trying to control you, whether they be little children, the ego, the soul print energy, your will, and we have rebellious sides and resistant and fear. So you are always getting people showing you what is going on in your internal dynamic. You are speaking these things to your own self. Now, the other thing that I thought was cool is, what you brought up is taking time to be quiet and still and to meditate. So what I want to say is that it's so important that you surround yourself with people on the outside that understand all of this, and that you are seeking help from a coach or a therapist or whatever that is going to help you sort through this, of course, with people that have already done their own work and understand what you're going through. But to spend more time in your own self, in your own inner being, and giving yourself time to meditate and be still and to listen, because this is how you connect with your divine spirit. And that divine spirit is there to help you unravel and help with all of these revelations and help fix the patterns and the revolution. And so you have all of this internal help that is there 24/7, and then you have your outside, your friends, your coaches, your therapists, whatever, doctors that are there to help you when you're with them. So it is so important. I don't think anything's more important than having the willingness to be quiet, because I think that is when you start some self-reflection, and that you have to have the willingness to be honest with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And none of us are honest. Yeah, none of us are honest with ourselves, because we don't even know what's inside ourselves. We don't know that we come with a Pandora's box that we've created our identity out of and clung to, and that none of it's true.
Well, what's really interesting is that I noticed things will happen physically with me. Like, I've suffered with this neck injury for so long. And when it really flares up, which it's been lately, I know that is a time for me to withdraw from everyone and just, and of course I say, oh, well, I'm trying to get pain management under control, and I'm trying to get this neck thing under control, and, I'm a bit miserable because I don't really feel good. But I also find it's a time for me to say, okay, what's going on? Because I know that I always have this neck thing, but sometimes it's really increasingly worse, and for really no apparent reason other than, I didn't go and, weed 8 gardens and then say, okay, well, what's wrong with me? I mean, I just noticed that this really just flares, right? And then I think it's my body's way to say, you need to pull back. You're stressed out. You're upset about something more than just the average, and you need to think about what's going on and really kind of get it straight. But you need to do it alone. So, and I've noticed, because that's a pattern. So interesting. It's just, and I've only just, and it wasn't until you sort of said that just now that I went, oh my God, that's my pattern. Wait, I have that, where I need to, something physically will happen to me so that I can actually stop. And the sad part is that it's like an excuse for me. So, my excuse is that my neck hurts, but really there's also other things going on, and I need to stop and look at that. And we just don't want to say, I want time out from the world. So what we do is we have an excuse of something. Isn't it true? And
It
I
is.
can use my neck as an excuse, even though it does pain me. And yes, I am in chronic pain. And yes, it is annoying as heck. And it is debilitating at times. However, it's still a way for me to say, yeah, but my neck hurts and I'm just going to pull back here because I need to figure some stuff out.
Yeah. And people are more forgiving when there's something wrong with you than when you say, I just need to do this for me.
I know,
right.
because they don't get it. They don't get it. And then we're also too afraid to say, you know what, it's not you, it's me. I just want to have some, I just don't want to answer the phone today. I want to have some
Or it's not me,
today.
it's you. I just don't want to. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
No, it's true.
Right.
And because what will happen is they'll keep pressing and pressing and pressing as to why. There's got to be a reason. It can't just be that you want inner reflection. What's wrong with you? Right. So, and that's, I guess, again, like you said, but we've shown this. So we've shown this to the world, and now we've changed the rules of the game. And so in order to change, eventually they're going to be the world is going to be okay with, oh, that's just what she does. She just stops and, pulls back and has me time. And then other people
there must be something wrong.
Or eventually they'll just get to, well, that's just what she does.
Right.
Or we get to the point where we allow them to have their reaction and we're okay with it.
Exactly.
Right? So if I can be okay with your disappointment. I can make space for your disappointment, but that doesn't have to affect me, and it's hard to get to that point, especially like I know I like to make people happy. I like to please, so when somebody's disappointed, I'm like, oh man, but getting to that point, there are times where I can hit that level where I'm like, you know what? It's okay that you're disappointed. It's still not changing anything, but I can respect the fact that you can have your feelings. I'm not going to take that away from you, but that could be a really hard place to rest sometimes with. But again, that's the power of relationships, right? Because they give us the tools, they give us the classroom to be able to practice that over and over and over again, like, oh, you weren't okay with that. Let's give it to you again in another form. There's always a makeup test.
Yeah. And our subconscious rules our body. So whatever's stuck in our subconscious, any beliefs or whatever, and I'll tell you what, guilt and shame hide in there. And we have guilt and shame about everything. We're thinking, oh, I'm going to disappoint that person or blah, blah, blah. So it's always resonating in there. And our subconscious, what it does when it's feeling like that, it attacks our body. And that's what creates the pain or illness. So so what we need to do is change our subconscious, and I believe that that's done by God. That's when you're working and doing a lot of work with God, it's always, you're trying to do things, shifting patterns and stuff, but the more you understand, the higher you get into the mind of God, God is helping you do all of that stuff, that you don't have to micromanage yourself anymore. But like I was having knee problems. I'm like, why am I having knee problems? Well, all of a sudden I realized, okay, what's wrong with my knee? I can't bend it the way I want to, whatever. So what I realized is that I have stubbornness. And this is my subconscious's way of attacking my body for being stubborn. And so there's all kinds of stuff going on in your body that is coming from your mind, from your beliefs, and these are all the little things that are tucked in the subconscious that need to be revealed, and so that we can have these revolutions to completely shift them and not believe them anymore. So great topic.
Yay!
Great topic.
Thank you so much, ladies.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. So, Carolyn, why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you?
Sure. So you can get a hold of me on my website, carolyncolling.com, or on Facebook under Carolyn and Colling, Colling, or through my Facebook group, The Conscious Creator. And I'm always looking forward to hearing from people, or if they want opinions or want to share views, I'm always on board. So thank you so much again, Deb and Lynyetta. It's always a pleasure. I just love everything that happens out of these conversations because they're so organic. Nothing's rehearsed. And I love their blend. They just blend. It just flows. And it's just, it's great. I love it.
Yes, it is amazing. And you're amazing. And I'm so glad that, you have been able to bring all of your wisdom and love to the show. And so we're going to miss you.
Oh,
we are going to miss you. But we wish you
seriously
such great blessings on what you're doing.
Thanks.
Because I know that you are awesome. So,
thank you.
Thank
you so much.
Oh,
yes,
you're welcome.
Yes.
And Lynyetta, you're amazing too, and I'm so glad you came up with this topic. And so why don't you tell people how to get in touch with you, because you're doing amazing stuff also with families, which is so important. So important.
Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Sorry, I unplugged the microphone thing. So, yes, you can get in contact with me on my website, www.drlwillis.com. So that's DR, L as in Ladybug, Willis, WILLIS.com. You can also find me on Facebook. And, shoot me a message. I have a package on there right now. Or you can shoot me a message if there's other things that I can help you with your family relationships, whether that's family of origin or family of creation or the family that you're in right now. I'd love to hear from you.
And thank you for giving us your time, both of you. It is such a blessing, and I'm honored, and it's such a privilege to bring our listeners hosts like the both of you to Angel Heart Radio, that you're giving your time for free to help people, help them feel better and know how to get in touch with themselves and come into a much happier life. So it is such a blessing.
And thank you, Deb, and thank you, Carolyn.
You're very welcome. When in doubt, never underestimate the power of prayer. You are being listened to and heard throughout the universe, and it always responds with infinite and eternal love. Remember to go inside and listen through your heart for the whispers of heaven. I love you, and God bless you.
You've been listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world, and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice. The views expressed by hosts, co-hosts, callers, guests, and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.